Hello and welcome to this very short introduction to Luxrender. My name is Frederik Steinmetz, and if you've never used Lux before and you want to compare Lux to cycles using my Praying Mantis tutorial, then you will probably need to watch this. Okay, biggest difference between Luxrender and Blender Render is that Lux is an unbiased render, so it supports mesh lights and caustics and yeah, that's basically the biggest difference. Luxrender still supports sun skies. So if you have no experience in unbiased lighting, then I recommend you to use a sunlight and just choose sun and sky and use that as a surrounding environment. There is one problem. If you turn up the turbidity, which should be just how many clouds there are in the sky, and by that how soft the shadows are, because turbidity of 2 is very harsh shadows. They fixed that problem. It's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, you can see now that this is just a normal daylight situation. The monkey gets rendered and is casting a fairly harsh shadow. Okay, this is the skylight. Let's continue having another look at I'll just delete this one. You can still use, there's a second one. Oh, that is where the second shadow came from. Okay. Yeah, the softer shadow came from the skylight that I created with the increased turbidity, and the harsh shadow over here, that came from the skylight that was still there, which I didn't catch. You can still use spot lamps and area lamps just the way you used to, but I think the two most common lamps, or three, is skylight and mesh light, and the last one I'll show you in a second. In Luxrender with mesh lights, you have to be careful because they only cast light in one direction, and that is along the normals. There's two ways of trying which way the normals, or actually there's three ways, which way the normals of a face are pointing. One is to enable GLSL shading, or just to check textured solids. In this case, if you put to solid, then your two-dimensional objects, which have no depth, are only visible from the direction into which the normals are pointing. So if I rotate this, you can see the plane gets transparent or invisible, which means the normals are pointing into the wrong direction. There's a couple of other tests too. You can set this to normal, then the blue arrow will face into the direction of the normal. And lastly, and this is probably the most secure one, you can have the normals shown. If you press T, select, N, and under display, you select face, then the normals of the faces are going to show. So this is the wrong way, so I'll flip this, flip normals, and now you can see the normals are pointing into the other direction, which is very important in Luxrender lighting. Okay, now I can just position this and give it an emission material. By that you can just leave it to matte and select Luxrender emission, and then the gain and the power and the efficacy. I'm not sure what the efficacy does. I read it, but I didn't really understand. I'm sorry. Okay, for the monkey there are several types of material you can choose from. They're fairly self-explanatory, and many of them have tons of presets, so you can just go nuts with those. Or if you want a more complex material, just watch the Praying Mantis tutorial. Okay, if I was to render that now, I would get a... let's just do that. I'll pause because it takes a while to initialize. Oh, by the way, while this is rendering, if you have any trouble, Lux doesn't start, because that happens a lot, actually. Well, not a lot, but fairly often, that Lux just won't start, and it's kind of hard to determine why that is. And the easiest way is to go to Help and toggle the system console, and then you will see what's happening in Lux. Right now, this is set to verbose, I think. No, it's actually at default. So I'll set it to quiet. This is the log verbosity. Same thing. Okay, let's say very quiet. Still, it's telling you every step it does, and this comes from the updating of this material. Okay, so you'll actually, even if you, it used to be that you could just select an object that doesn't have a material, and you can make it shut up by that, but apparently that's no longer the case. So if Flux doesn't start, press F12 and you see some uh, changing in this mud of numbers, this flood of numbers. Then you can scroll up to that, something like that, and you see the error message. One of the most common ones, if Lux started before and now it doesn't, it's most likely to be to have to do with that there are no light sources in the scene. For example, if you hide your light sources with H, of course, in theory, they still get exported, but Luxrender will still think there's no light in the scene. Why should I render this? Okay, this is what happens if you use a mesh light to light the monkey. It looks fairly nice, still of course a lot of grain, but that's because Luxrender takes a while to render without grain. Okay, that is the almost the last one. And one method that is a little processor consuming, but it gives you a very natural light situation, is the HDR lighting. HDR lighting means that you can use an all-around image texture, which is a panoramic view. It has to be spherical, a cylinder won't do. And everything that is white in here, or brighter, will act as a light source. There's two advantages to that. One is that you have a very evenly lit scene, and second, if you have a reflective material, the reflective material will then reflect the studio environment. These HDRI packs you can get if you Google for Luxrender HDRIs, you'll get to one of these pages. zbyg.deviantart.com apparently has at least 3 of them. For another scene I use this one because it looks very natural. This is a great resource, and as I said, it only takes a little longer, but other than that, it makes the scene look a lot more natural. So how to use it is a little bit unintuitive, but once you know how it works, it's no problem. You can use a hemi-light, and then in the hemi-light material options, you can see HDR map. And these are some of the studio maps that I downloaded. And I'll just take this one and make the monkey glossy. I'll just give it a shiny metal material. Shiny metal. Shiny metal. And press render again. And here you can see that the studio lighting is actually being reflected in the monkey's head. So there's this lighting here, and you can see the streaks in the monkey's head. So, of course, in a perfect world, if you were to use a Blender object in a material, in a natural environment, you would go ahead and take an HDR surrounding image of this environment and use it as light source. Of course, that is hardly ever possible, but that's how the pros do it. Anyways, I think this is now enough basics in order to proceed with the praying mantis lighting tutorial, or material tutorial rather. And yeah, if you're interested in how I did those complex materials, then just click on the next video. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you later.